Hi. Continuing on in my investment into the future here. I can get this book read in about 8 days' time, or 8 recordings, if I do 14 pages a day, or a recording until it's done. And I am quite anxious to get done with this book. I want to move on. Like I said, I consider it an investment into the future. For my grandchild might be interested in this someday. We'll start out. We ended on Ralph Waldo Emerson, I hate quotations. We'll continue with the two faces of anger, guilt and resentment. Anger is guilt directed at ourselves, what we did or did not do. Resentment is anger directed at others, what they did or did not do. The process of guilt and resentment is the same. We have an image that either we or others should live up to, an image of all the shoulds, musts, have-tos, and demands we've learned or created about our own and or others' behavior. We emotionally demand that we or others live up to this image. We or they fail to live up to our image, and we judge the contrary action as wrong, bad, wicked, and evil. We become emotionally upset, bitter, alienated, hurt, hostile, belligerent, combative, contentious, quarrelsome, vicious, touchy, cranky, cross, grouchy, testy, enraged, aggravated, annoyed, furious, teed off, etc. We put them all under the general umbrella of angry. We assign blame for the emotional upset. Either we did it or they did it. The judge pronounces sentence. The swift execution of justice. If we are to blame, we direct the anger toward ourselves, feeling regret, remorse, shame, repentance, culpability, fault, and we call that guilt. If the transgressor of our expectations was someone or something other than ourselves, we call our anger spite, jealousy, suspicion, malice, begrudging, envy, indignation, all of which we call resentment. The sad fact is, whether we blame us or them, we feel the hurt. But that is not considered, at least not for long. All of this continues for the prescribed length of time and intensity. No reprieves, no appeals, possible time off for good behavior. If these two faces of anger, or if there are two faces of anger, what's the good in that? Frankly, not much. So why do I have anger in a section on master teachers? If we had listened to the voices of the master teachers at the very beginning, the feeling of guilt and resentment would not have been necessary. To save us from these is the job of the master teacher, anger. Anger begins as an inner twinge. We sense something long before it blossoms, or explodes, into an emotional tirade. If we listen to this twinge and follow its advice, the emotional outburst or inburst is not needed. What advice is this master teacher giving? Stop, look, and change. Stop. Don't do anything. You're not at a choice point. You've got two ways to go. One choice equals freedom, the other choice equals misery. Familiar misery, but misery nonetheless. Look. What image, expectation, belief, should, must, or ought to, either about yourself or another, is about to be, or has recently been, violated? Well, people should drive more carefully. I mustn't eat cake if I'm on a diet. Change. What do you change? The image? Your image is not accurate, according to hard, cold physical evidence. People should drive carefully, but do they always? Hardly. That should is inaccurate, false, erroneous, and wrong. People on diets mustn't eat cake, but do they? Oh, you bet. That mustn't is untrue, faulty, mistaken, and incorrect. Based on the actual life data given to you, Your images, shoulds, musts, and have-tos are all wet, or don't hold any water, or sink in the ocean of truth, or any other aquatic metaphor you choose. But what do we but but what do we often do with the image that is proven conclusively to be inaccurate? Do we disregard it? Do we intelligently alter it based on reality? People should drive carefully, and sometimes they don't. People on diets shouldn't eat too much cake too often. We make ourselves miserable with the inaccurate image. The world's actions do not conform to our beliefs. Woe is us. If our own actions don't conform to our beliefs, woe on us. Can you see the absurdity in this? We demand that our illusion, or image, be more real than reality. What actually happened? Hurting ourselves in the process. Where's the victory in that? I bet you thought that was a rhetorical question. It's not. There are answers. First, we get to feel right. Feeling right is a strong drug. Some people sacrifice a lot to be right. Ever hear the expression, dead right? The question the master teacher asks with each internal twinge of guilt or resentment, would you rather be right or be happy? If we answer happy, we're free. If we answer right, the cycle of misery begins again. If we are right, we must punish, either ourselves or another. As I mentioned, the irony is that we punish another. The irony is that when we punish another, we first punish ourselves. Who do you think feels all that hate that we have for another? The other person? Seldom. Us? Always. Second, anger is a habit. We learned it early on, before we could walk or talk, in some instances. The habit is so ingrained in some people that they haven't noticed a word of this chapter, or they haven't understood a word of this chapter. What is he talking about? When people do something wrong, I naturally feel upset. When I do something bad, well, of course I'll feel guilty. It's not natural. It's not of course. It's learned. Your early lessons of acceptance were as successful as our early lessons of anger. How much happier we all would be. If our early lessons of acceptance were as successful as our early lessons of anger, how much happier we would all be. Third, guilt and resentment give us and others permission to do it again. Far from preventing a reoccurrence, the punishment simply lets the person, either you or another, say, I've paid my dues and now I'm free to do it again. Many people weigh the guilt they will feel against the pleasure of the forbidden action they want to take. As long as they're willing to pay the price, the action is okay. People often ponder the anticipated wrath of another before taking certain actions. If I'm 5 minutes late, he'll be a little mad. They make a choice between another's resentment and whatever it is that might make them 5 minutes late. If we're willing to endure the chastisement, they reason, it's okay to be late. Guilt and resentment, then, far from preventing evil, perpetuate it. What if we use the twinge of guilt to change the action? What if we feel the guilt and don't eat the cake? Isn't that using the Master Teacher's message for our good? Well, it's a good start. If we don't do something because we're afraid of the guilt, we are, in fact, being motivated by fear and guilt. If we do good because we fear what might happen to us if we don't do good, the act of good is tainted with fear. As a transition, especially when breaking a habit, it's a beginning, but we must move beyond that or find ourselves in the trap of not feeling guilty because we'd feel guilty if we felt guilty. So what can we use to motivate ourselves to do good? Do good because good is the right thing to do? Not right as in conforming to law and morality or else, but right as in accordance with fact, reason, and truth. Another great motivator is love. Love yourself enough to stay on that diet because you love your body and you want to keep it healthy. More on this and other positive motivators later, along with the cure for guilt and resentment. The cure for guilt and resentment? Forgiveness. The preventative? Acceptance. The best reason to do good? Loving. And if you forget any of this, the master teacher will be there just before you veer off course, asking gently, with that first twinge of guilt or resentment, would you rather be right or happy? Your answer will always be respected. Stewart's law of retroaction states, it's easier to get forgiveness than permission. Rob Steiger said, the most important thing is to be whatever you are, without shame. David Lloyd George said, don't be afraid to take a big step. If one is indicated, you can't cross a chasm in two small jumps. Darn it, I mispaced that. Let's try it one more time. Don't be afraid to take a big step if one is indicated. You can't cross a chasm in 2 small jumps. I don't know if that made much more sense. Casual reading time. I forgot to count these pages. I counted them up to be 14 pages over the next 8 recordings. Should finish the book. I won't even get to finish the alphabet. Because, I was going there, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. This will end on O. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Alright, and then we'll be done with this recording. Fear. When encountering a new situation, wouldn't it be wonderful to have an extra burst of energy? Wouldn't it be nice if our senses sharpened, our minds became more alert, and we felt a sense of increased readiness? Wouldn't it be great if we breathed a little deeper, getting more oxygen, our heartbeat a little faster, getting that oxygen around our body, and our eyes widened a little, allowing us to see more clearly? Wouldn't that be a nice gift to have? That would be a master teacher worth welcoming, right? Well, we have that gift already. It's called fear. Fear? Sure. If you think about it, or perhaps I should say feel about it, the only difference between fear and excitement is what we label it. The two are pretty much the same physiological emotional reaction. With fear, we put a negative spin on it. Oh no. With excitement, we give it a positive English. Oh boy! Why does fear have such a bad rep? Childhood. Our parents used fear to keep us safe when we were out of their sight. As children, we didn't know the difference between playing in the street and playing on a playground. We didn't know the difference between poison and milk. We didn't know the difference between a total stranger and a perfect stranger. Our parents taught us, with the most loving intentions, to fear everything new. This fear probably saved our lives on any number of occasions. All well and good. The problem is, at the stage of 18, when we did know the difference between the truly dangerous and the merely intriguing, no one taught us how to use fear for the remarkable gift that it is. It's as though nobody took the training wheels off of our bike. Today, we probably don't need fear to Today, we probably don't need to fear poison to keep... dang nabbit. Today, we probably don't need to fear poison to keep us from drinking it. We don't need it, or we don't drink it because, well, there's no future in it. Only occasionally do we need the rush of fear necessarily to quickly avoid a new situation. An imperfect stranger on a dark street, for example. Most of the time, however, fear is a wonderful ally in our quest for growth, learning, and expansion. To use fear as the friend it is, we must restrain and reprogram ourselves. Enough blaming the past. Your life is in your hands now. We must persistently and convincingly tell ourselves that the fear is here, with this gift of energy and heightened awareness. so that we can do our best and learn the most in the new situation. Before we can make friends with fear, it may be necessary to learn that fear is not the enemy. It's important to know that. If we do the thing we fear, we will not die. Some people tell themselves of every new situation, "It's going to be awful and terrible, and then I'll die." The phrase, "to die of embarrassment," is an example of the exaggerations people make out of fear. To prove to ourselves we won't die, that, in fact, nothing physically bad is likely to happen to us, it's necessary to move through the fear. Most people treat fear as a wall at the edge of their comfort zone. As they approach the wall, the fear increases, and they turn around and walk away. They do not do whatever they fear. Hence, the belief that fear is a limitation and not a prelude to illumination is perpetuated. If you want to learn about fear, whatever it is you fear doing, that's the very next thing to do. Fear is not a wall. It's just an emotion. Move through that fear. Keep taking step after step toward the thing you want. It may become quite uncomfortable, and then suddenly, it will be less. Once you start doing the thing you fear, the fear is used for its true purpose, extra energy. Do we use the energy doing what we want to do, and the wall of fear disappears? We use the energy doing what we want to do, and the wall of fear disappears. Okay. Over time, you'll learn to use the energy even before you start moving. You'll create a gate for yourself in the wall. Then, when the fear arises, you'll say, "Welcome! I needed a little extra energy. This one might be a challenge." And off to the sunrise you go with your old friend. Bob Dylan says, "When you feel in your gut what you are, and then dynamically pursue it, don't back down and don't give up, then you're going to mystify a lot of folks." Alex Carrel said, "To accomplish our destiny, it is not enough to merely guard prudently against road accidents. We must also cover before nightfall the distance assigned to each of us." All right, let me try that again. Making so many mistakes. I bet you didn't know I wasn't a professional reader. That's right, I'm a grandma reading to her grandchild. So that's your expectation level. Thank you. Let me try it again. Alex Carrel said, "To accomplish our destiny, it is not enough to merely guard prudently against road accidents. We must also cover before nightfall the distance assigned to each of us." Oliver Wendell Holmes said, "If I had a formula for bypassing trouble, I would not pass it around. Trouble creates a capacity to handle it. I don't embrace trouble. That's as bad as treating it as an enemy. But I do say that I meet it as a friend, for you'll see a lot of it, and had better be on speaking terms with it." Pain and disease. Imagine this scenario. You have an important appointment at 9 a.m. The night before, you tell your 2 roommates, who are also 2 of your best friends, "I have an important meeting tomorrow morning. It means a lot to me. Would you please make sure that I'm awake by 8 a.m.? And your friends, knowing your history of sleeping late, are reluctant. "Please do what you implore. It's very important. Do whatever you have to do. Just make sure that I'm up by 8 a.m. Your friends agree. The next morning, pardon me, at 7 o'clock, they knock on your door. You don't respond. 5 minutes later, they knock harder. No response. 5 minutes later, they knock and yell. No response. 10 minutes later, they come into your room and yell. No response. 5 minutes later, they gently shake you. You tell them to leave you alone. You've changed your mind. The appointment's not that important after all. Knowing you well, they do not believe you. They shake you and call your name, and you tell them you're awake. They're not convinced. They check back in 10 minutes, still asleep. As 8 a.m. approaches, they shake you, yelling, "Wake up!" You are not pleased. Your friends are threatening cold water. Eventually, reluctantly, if your friends are good enough, i.e. persistent enough, you'll wake up. If What if this were the role pain and disease played in your life? May not remember giving a wake-up call, and we may not remember asking them to do the awakening, but doing it they are. What are we waking up to? Ourselves. Living in the moment. Living more effectively. Better relationships with ourselves and others, and so on. When we're asleep, we're unconscious and not aware of these possibilities. Our friends know we want to be aware of them, so our friends go through the thankless job of waking us up. Pain, any pain, emotional, physical, mental, has a message. The information it has about our life can be remarkably specific, but it also falls into one of two categories. We would be more alive if we did more of this, and life would be more lovely if we did less of that. Once we get the pain's message and follow its advice, the pain goes away. Somebody unknown said, whenever he thought about it, he felt terrible. And so, at last, he came to the fateful decision he decided not to think about it. You can use your sanctuary to find out what your pain is trying to tell you. You can, for example, contact the pain through the information retrieval system, or you could have it appear on the video screen. You might have to consult with it in the health center. You can invite it in on the People Mover. Imagine the pain as though it were animated by Walt Disney, or as a Muppet. Give it a mouth. Let it speak. Remember, this is a friend. Ask it a few questions. For example, what do I get from having you around? What excuses do you give me? What information do you have for me? What should I be doing less often? What should I be doing more often? How can I take care of my body? How can I take better care of my emotions? What can I do to take better care of my mind? What can I do to take better care of myself? After you've had your chat, thank the pain for the information. Surround it with the white light and see it dissolve into that light. And then fill the space in your body, mind, and emotions where the pain was with light. It's important to follow the pain's advice. Remember, painful equals pay in full. The more severe the pain or illness, the more severe will be the necessary changes. These may involve breaking bad habits, acquiring new and better ones. To hear the advice of the pain without following it is as useful, or should I say useless, as any other unheeded good advice. Take the corrective action necessary, and the pain will decrease. Continue this healing through action, and you will be healed. How far will pain go to get its message across? Illness, disease. The ultimate wake-up call is the life-threatening illness. And that alarm clock in your ear doesn't wake you up, then nothing will. And he leaves a footnote. My book on this subject, You Can't Afford the Luxury of a Negative Thought, a book for people with any life-threatening illness, including life, is available, blah, blah, blah. I have that book too, but I must confess that reading this one's been quite a chore for me, so I probably won't do it unless somebody likes these. If somebody likes this series, then maybe later on down the road I'll do it. But let me tell you what, can't get anybody to get past the first couple minutes, so that means I'm going to be off the hook. I dare you to tell me you want to see the next chapters, or the next book. I dare you, I dare you. He's got a great book called, it's like Life 102 or something like that. It's the companion. He says, what to do when your guru sues you. And so he goes into a lot of his journey getting out of that. I probably won't read that either, because I'm telling you what, it's so saccharine positive. I love it. And I'm like, okay, can we just get to the part where we, realize the self and, be the Buddha? Can we do that? But, I figured it's not that easy for people to just be the Buddha. Be the Buddha now. So that's a hard practice. So these are, like I said, the backup steps, the mysticism light, the how do I play with the toys and then kind of hopefully guide yourself out of the house. It's burning, It's a reference to the Lotus Sutra, which I won't be reading to y'all because it's long. Somerset Maugham said, "It's a funny thing about life. If you refuse to accept anything but the best, you very often get it." That's not true. Oh, yeah, that's not true. Somerset, you're wrong. If you refuse to accept anything but the best, then you never get the best. You get shit all the time. Well, maybe both things are true. Stubbornness. Gather round, rebels. This chapter is especially for you. Considering my temperament, I should probably say me. Many of us rebels got into the rebellion business for a good reason. We were rebels with a cause. As children, when the world moved in with its obsession for conformity, "We'd love you a lot more if only you were a little less different," the rebel said, "I won't," and stuck to it. The defense of our individuality continued, probably necessarily so, through formal schooling. Eventually, it became a habit. We became masters of won't power. Give us something to be against, and we shine. As soon as what we're against is gone, we're lost. Rebels without something to be against are a sad sight. They wander around. They mutter to themselves. They secretly hope something will go wrong so they can be against it. Like professional soldiers in peace times, rebels will probably be very unhappy in utopia. Fortunately, there is a solution. Just as fear is also excitement, stubbornness is also determination. It's simply a matter of shifting from won't power to will power. Rather than, "I won't get sick," change it into, "I will keep my mind, body, and healthy emotions." Replace, "I won't be with people who don't understand me," with, "Well, I'll be with people who like me as I am." That's why I live alone. That's why your grandmother lives alone. Not too many people like me the way I am. Anyway, sorry about that. That's why I practice what I do. We can turn "I hate war" into "I love peace." It's a matter of finding the positive opposite, and rebels are so good at finding opposites and focusing on that. This shifts the energy from stubbornness to determination. My only problem: how do I communicate all this to my fellow rebels in a way they won't rebel against? Jorge Renaud said, "Anyone can revolt. It is more difficult silently to obey our inner promptings and to spend our lives finding sincere and fitting means of expression for our temperament and our gifts." What? Anyone can revolt. It is more difficult silently to obey our own inner promptings and to spend our lives finding sincere and fitting means of expression for our temperament and our gifts. It is more difficult to silently obey our own inner promptings and to spend our lives finding sincere and fitting means of expression for our temperament and gifts. See, that doesn't make sense to me either. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Let us, then, be up and doing, with a heart for any fate, still achieving, still pursuing, learning to labor and to wait. That's cute. Okay, well, that'll be this section. And we may do other sections. Yay! Let's see this go. Yay. Nah.